your things and leave. We don't need you in this house anymore. But this is my house. Well, it's not yours anymore. Get out.
My name is Zuri Harris. I'm 29, a black woman, and a floor nurse at a community hospital in Atlanta, Georgia. For years I told myself I was just staying with my mother, Evelyn, for a season. But seasons turned into cycles, and cycles turned into routine. When Mom's doctor said she'd need careful monitoring for her diabetes and high blood pressure, meds, checkups, diet, the whole program, I stepped in without blinking. I handled it all. The grocery runs, pill boxes, appointment reminders, blood pressure logs, the bills that came like clockwork. I did the math in my head at night, how much I'd put off, how much I'd poured out, and tried not to cry over the way my savings thinned each month. It wasn't resentment so much as a steady ache. You can love someone and still get tired. My older brother Marcus is 35. He and his wife Tiana have lived out in Denver for nearly a decade. Visits? Rare. Help? None. Calls? Only when convenient. Still, Mom spoke about him like he was carved out of sunlight. Me? I was present, reliable, invisible. That history of favoritism didn't start yesterday. When we were kids, if there was one slot for lessons, Marcus got guitar while I learned to clap from the couch. When I brought home honor rolls, Mom smiled. When he scraped through graduation, she threw a whole barbecue. I learned early. In this family, effort wasn't currency. Sentiment was. 3 weeks before Thanksgiving, Mom answered a call and lit up like the 4th of July. "It's Marcus," she breathed, like he was checking in from Mars. I kept stirring the pot on the stove and half listened as she murmured a stream of course, baby, and we'll figure it out. When she hung up, she looked serious. "Marcus and Tiana hit a rough patch," she said. "They need to come stay, just for a while." "Stay here?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "They'll drive down next week." Her smile turned soft. "I'll finally see my boy in the mornings again." They rolled in on a bright Tuesday afternoon with a rented truck and opinions, and I burned a PTO day to help unload, even though my back still hummed from a heavy week on the unit. Tiana walked in like the house had been waiting on her approval. She didn't mean to be rude. She just knew what she liked and acted like we should too. Boxes thumped up the stairs, and then, like a scene I couldn't quite believe, Marcus and Tiana headed straight past the guest room into my room. I cleared my throat. "That's, my space." Tiana smiled like it was a teachable moment. "We need a real bedroom, Zuri. Your mom said you could shift into the utility room for now. It's only temporary." Marcus added, "You're just one person. We kinda need the space." I glanced toward Mom in the hall. She kept her eyes on the floor. "Honey, it makes sense," she said softly. "They're a couple. The utility room has room for a cot." A cot. In the room with the washer and dryer. Bright afternoon sun poured through the stairwell window, and all I could think was how heat can make you dizzy even when the air is fine. I swallowed, nodded once, and moved my life into a humming, detergent-scented closet. The fluorescent fixture buzzed like it had an argument with the world. After 12-hour shifts, I lay on a too-short cot and tried to pretend this was a bridge and not a trap. By the time Thanksgiving rolled around, Atlanta served us perfect blue sky and easy warmth, the kind of day you save for. We set up tables outside in the backyard, because that's what Mom loved. Lawn chairs, chattering cousins who might drop by, paper plates trying not to fly away. Tiana took over the menu without asking. "No offense, Zuri," she said cheerfully. "I'll handle it." None taken, and deeply taken. The table looked like a magazine spread by noon. Autumn leaves tucked into mason jars, perfectly sliced cornbread cooling in neat rows, a turkey resting like it had been through a spa. We ate under the sun, Mom at the head of the long folding table, Marcus and Tiana flanking her, and me opposite, smiling thinly and tasting more air than food. When the plates were mostly bare and everyone pushed back to breathe, Marcus dabbed his mouth with a napkin and cleared his throat. "Zuri, can you come sit over here?" he said, patting the chair beside him. The whole mood shifted, even the breeze felt different. I sat. Mom folded her hands. Tiana leaned in like a guidance counselor. Marcus met my eyes. "We've talked it through," he said, "and we're gonna stay here long term, maybe, permanently." My jaw held still, but the ground tilted. Tiana nodded brightly. "It just makes sense. Close to family, more affordable than Denver, and we can help with your mom." Marcus continued, "Which means we gotta sort out the living situation. 3 adults in this house is a lot. You could stay in the utility room permanently, or it might be time to find your own place. Daylight can be cruel. Under a high, honest sun, I watched my mother's face for a lifeline. Zuri, baby, Mom whispered, you deserve your own life. Marcus and Tiana can help me now. The paper cup in my hand crumpled. I unfolded my fingers, set it down, and nodded once. If that's what you want, I said, I'll go. And just like that, the sun felt hotter. The backyard was still beautiful. The food still pretty. The sky still generous. But I realized none of it was for me. I packed in daylight. Afternoon poured through the side door as I dragged 2 duffel bags from the utility room and stacked them by my old sneakers. The washer rattled through a spin cycle like it was cheering me out. Mom stood in the kitchen, twisting a dish towel. She didn't reach for me. She didn't say stay. I called my best friend, Nia Coleman, who lived across town. Can I crash for a few days? I asked. Girl, bring your toothbrush, she said. I'll put a clean sheet on the couch before the sun's down. I left without a scene. No slammed doors, no speeches. Just the soft thud of my car trunk closing in the driveway, bright sky reflecting off the windshield. At Nia's place, the living room windows caught the last gold of the day. She hugged me, and for the first time in months, my chest loosened. We brewed tea, sat on her small balcony where the city hum sounded far away, and I told her everything from the only temporary to the permanently. They've been living off your silence, Nia said finally. Now you're done being quiet. The next Tuesday afternoon, my phone lit up with Mom. Her voice was calm, like the past week had been a misunderstanding. Zuri, baby, can you send me money for my prescriptions? The pharmacy won't release them without payment. How much? Around $650 this cycle. Insurance didn't clear everything. She thought insurance was a magic word. She had no idea what numbers I'd been swallowing each month. I can't, I said gently. Ask Marcus. There was a stunned pause, then a small, oh, and we hung up. 2 days later, Marcus called under a noon sky that made the pavement shimmer. Zuri, the prescriptions are $650 every month? Closer to that, yes. I said. Sometimes more, depending on the doctor's add-ons. Then there's a $240 supplemental plan and the $1,050 mortgage draft, plus groceries, copays, the BP monitor cuff that keeps failing. Marcus, it adds up. He exhaled. We can't afford all that. I couldn't either, I said. But I did. For 3 years. Your turn. I blocked out the guilt with sunlight and forward motion. I picked up extra shifts and started apartment scrolling during lunch breaks on a bench outside the hospital, the kind of bench that's always a little too warm but keeps you grounded. A week later, Mom texted, "Can we meet? Please." I chose a public place where I could breathe. The outdoor tables at the neighborhood community garden, where kids zipped by on scooters and a woman sold lemonade under a pop-up tent. Mom arrived in oversized sunglasses, though the sun wasn't that bright. She looked smaller, like the truth had trimmed her edges. I had a spreadsheet ready on my tablet, because if love is a verb, I needed mine to have receipts. I scrolled. Here, I said. Average monthly, $1,050 mortgage, $650 prescriptions, $240 supplemental, plus utilities and food. Most months fell between $2,100 and $2,700. For 36 months, that's roughly $78,000 out of my pocket. The breeze lifted a corner of my printout. Mom pressed it flat with shaking fingers. I didn't know, she whispered. I thought you were just picking up groceries. I thought the plan covered the rest. You never asked, I said softly. You were busy bragging on Marcus. You never asked me what any of this cost. She cried, openly, daylight tears that made strangers glance and look away. I didn't rub her shoulder. I'd done enough touching without being held back. I can't keep paying, I said, standing. You told me Marcus and Tiana would help. Let them. A few afternoons later, Tiana showed up at Nia's, stomping across the sidewalk like she owned every square of concrete. She didn't wait for an invitation, just slid past my doorframe as sun spilled across the hardwood. You need to come back, she snapped. Your mother needs those meds. I funded them for 3 years, I said evenly. I slept beside a washing machine so you could have my bed. You're selfish, she hissed. You're abandoning her. I pointed to the door. Out. The door clicked shut and the room went quiet except for the distant Doppler of a siren and the neighbor's wind chimes arguing with the breeze. The next morning, Mom called again, voice ragged. I'm sorry, she sobbed. You saved me, and I treated you like help. I breathed in slow. I'll cover one final month of prescriptions, I said. Just one, while you apply for assistance and sort a real plan. I'm not moving back. She agreed. I sent the payment that afternoon, sunlight pooling across my lap as I double-checked the confirmation number. By the end of the week, I signed a short lease on a tiny studio on the east side. Sunny, imperfect, mine. I worked doubles, watched my account stop bleeding, and learned the feel of quiet that doesn't hurt. A few days into my new rhythm, Marcus intercepted me outside the hospital as I clocked out. We stood under a line of crepe myrtles, their blossoms raining pink confetti on the sidewalk. Tiana left, he said. Went back to Denver, filed papers, he swallowed. I'm sorry for how we treated you, for all of it. I told Mom to hire help. Maybe someone from your unit. That's smart, I said, and meant it. An apology is a start, not a solution. By the next bright morning, Mom had a home health aide, a woman named Patrice, who also picked up shifts at our hospital. I ran into her by the side entrance one noon, both of us squinting into the sun. Your mom is sweet, Patrice said. She talks about you, says she misses you. That's good, I said, and let the warmth be what it was. Present, not persuasive. 3 months passed in clean daylight. I worked, I cooked for myself, I watched the bare window across from my bed catch pale morning and orange evening and thought, this is what a life looks like when nobody is stealing your air. Then Patrice tugged my elbow on a breezy Friday outside the staff lot. You should know, she said quietly, your mom's telling relatives you abandoned her. Heat crawled up my neck, not from the sun. That evening, gold hour washing my desk, I printed what people ignore and what they understand. Statements, receipts, dates, totals. I penned a clear letter in my own voice and mailed it to Mom, to Marcus, and to every auntie and cousin who'd picked up her story. Then I turned off my phone and stood on my stoop, letting the last light slide away. Over the next few days, calls trickled in. Soft apologies, awkward confessions, a chorus of we didn't know. I accepted what I could and set boundaries where I couldn't. The truth was outside now, stretched flat in the sun where lies get brittle. A week later, Mom asked to meet again. Same deal, outdoor seating at a small cafe tucked into a plaza where kids chased bubbles and a street musician worked a mellow sax. She sat across from me, hands folded like prayer. I read every page, she said. I was wrong. I chose Marcus because I thought he was brighter, louder, destined. You were steady, and I mistook that for small. She blinked up at the sky. I was a poor mother to you. I appreciate the words, I said. But time has to do the work now. She nodded. I know. We sat for a while, not fixing the past, just letting daylight lay where it wanted. A month later, a door I hadn't been brave enough to knock on swung open by itself. My manager called me in after lunch and said, we need a senior nurse who can lead and keep us organized. That's you. The raise wasn't enormous, but it was honest, and it changed the way the numbers felt. I bought a good coat, something warm and long, that made me stand taller walking to my car in the late afternoon. 2 nights a week, while the sun lingered longer, I started management courses at the community college. I was always tired and often happy. Mom couldn't keep the house. Without my deposits, the math didn't bend. She sold, moved to a subsidized senior apartment with bright courtyards and a shuttle that takes folks to the clinic. Marcus found steady work at a freight yard. Nothing flashy, but his transfers to Mom started arriving like clockwork. Not much, but real. 6 months after I left, HR tapped me again, in broad daylight, standing by a window where the city glittered. How do you feel about senior HR coordinator? My supervisor asked. Better hours, better pay, weekends that belong to me. I said yes. And like that, everything in my life switched from survival to structure. A 1-bedroom with a sunlit kitchen, a couch chosen because I loved it, not because it was free. Saturday markets with Naya, an early Sunday walk under trees that didn't ask me to justify my rest. We still spoke, Mom and I, on careful calls every couple of weeks. Updates about her building's garden beds and my caseload, Patrice's schedule and my latest class assignment. Civil, short, clean. By the end of 2 full years, I could stand in my living room at noon and feel one thing, clear as a shadow on concrete: peace. I'd spent so long bending to keep other people steady that I forgot how tall I could be. The old guilt still knocked sometimes. But daylight is a strong disinfectant for lies. I'd look back at the utility room, at the cot, at the backyard announcement made under a generous sky, and the guilt would fade like morning mist. I chose myself, and the sun kept finding my windows. Spring in Atlanta is loud with birds and lawnmowers, all business and bloom. On a bright Saturday, my cousin group chat pinged me about a small family cookout at Westview Park. Burgers, potato salad, card tables under the pecans. Normally I'd pass, but the message said Mom would be there and had something to say. If a reckoning was coming, it needed to meet the sun. I showed up with a bowl of fruit and my edges laid back. Naya came too, back up and witness, because history likes to rewrite itself when nobody's looking. Kids tore across the grass with kites. Aunties arranged foil pans like a chessboard. The grill hissed and smoked, and someone's Bluetooth speaker kept skipping but soldiered on. Mom stood near the picnic table, hands clasped. Patrice a few steps away with her ever-present tote. Marcus hovered, self-conscious, like he didn't know where to put his shoulders. When Mom saw me, she started crying before a word came out. The aunties quieted. The dominoes stopped clacking. Even the babies seemed to know we needed a second. In front of everybody, Mom said, voice catching, I lied on my child. I lied on Zuri. She took a breath that rattled. She didn't abandon me. She carried me, financially, physically, emotionally, for 3 years. I took her for granted. I told folks a story that wasn't true because shame makes a coward out of you. I'm asking forgiveness, publicly, so the truth stays public. Somebody said, Amen. A bee investigated the rim of the lemonade jug and flew off, unconcerned. I felt my jaw loosen just a little. I stepped forward so I wouldn't have to shout. Thank you, I said simply. Apologies matter. Boundaries do too. Mom nodded fast. I won't ask you to move back. I won't let anyone tell lies on you again. She held up an envelope like an offering. It's small. $50 a month I've been setting aside since I moved. Repayment won't touch what you spent, but I wanted to start. Keep it, I said. Use it to stay current on what you owe now. That's the only repayment I need. Stability. An aunt clapped softly. Another hugged Mom. Marcus shuffled closer, eyes wet. I'm contributing $200 on the first of every month. Auto transfer, he said, as if saying it out loud would make it permanent. And I'm coming by twice a week to handle grocery runs and the heavy stuff. He looked at me. This time I'll do it without complaining. Do it because it's right, I said. Not to get a pat on the head. He nodded. Sunlight made a pattern through the leaves on his shirt, silver, then green. We ate outside. Paper plates, sticky fingers, the good mustard that disappears first. I sat with Nia and Patrice, listening to them swap shift stories. Mom didn't crowd me. She floated, checking on folks, letting the day hold instead of force. When I got ready to go, she hugged me once, brief, careful, as if holding a bird and not wanting to crush it. I let her. In the weeks that followed, daylight kept delivering the kind of ordinary that used to feel like luxury. My new HR role settled on my shoulders like a jacket that finally fit. Coaching managers through scheduling snarls, rebuilding orientation so fresh hires didn't drown, creating a clear caregiver support guide for employees juggling aging parents. I put in a clause about med reconciliation and assistance programs because I'd lived what happens when families assume and don't ask. On a bright Wednesday lunch at the hospital courtyard, Patrice slid into the seat across from me. Your mom passed her nutrition class, she said, unwrapping a sandwich. And she's walking the courtyard loop 4 mornings a week. She tells anyone who will listen her daughter made the plan. She made the choice, I said. That's the difference. Patrice smiled. You're allowed to take a little credit, Miss Boundaries. That afternoon, Nia texted, Farmer's Market on Saturday? Day date with peaches and too many samples? I sent back a peach emoji and a yes. The next Saturday, we wandered row by row in clean sunshine. Tomatoes still warm from the field, a woman preaching the gospel of handmade soap, a guy selling hot sauce that could kick you into next week. We bought flowers for Nia's table and pears for mine, then split a flaky hand pie under a canvas tent, while a trio of college kids did their best jazz impression nearby. Look at you, Nia said, bumping my shoulder, out here glowing and minding your joy. Look at us, I corrected. And it felt good to be plural in a way that didn't cost me myself. Later that day, as the sun stretched long across my apartment floor, Marcus sent a photo. Mom standing in the courtyard of her building, holding a plastic pedometer like a trophy. 1.8 miles, the caption read. She said to tell you she's chasing 2. I stared at the picture until my eyes stung, then texted back a thumbs up and a gold star, because sometimes you don't need poetry, just proof. 2 years earlier, they told me to make room for their lives by shrinking mine. Now, under this steady Atlanta sun, I understood the math that finally made sense. You don't have to go broke to prove you love somebody, and love that requires you to disappear is not love. It's debt. The weather forecast said more clear days ahead. I believed it. Summer rolled in hot and honest. By June, our hospital HR team hosted a caregivers and community health fair in the parking lot across from the clinic. Tents flapping, blood pressure stations humming, a smoothie truck doing righteous business. I curated a new Care Without Collapse workshop. How to price the real cost of caregiving, where to find assistance, and what healthy boundaries look like when love and money collide. I taught it outside at noon, sun high, folks fanning themselves with the handouts I'd designed. I didn't point at my own past, but I spoke from it. If the plan only works because one person quietly pays for everything, then there is no plan. That's a crisis with a nice frame. People nodded like they'd been waiting on permission to say the obvious out loud. Halfway through, I saw Mom walking up slow with Patrice and a neighbor from her building. Mom wore a big straw hat and a stubborn smile. She took a front row chair and listened with her whole body, like she owed the information more than attention. She owed it a life change. When we wrapped, she waited until the crowd thinned, then squeezed my hand. I wish I'd heard this years ago, she said. But I'm hearing it now. Across the lot, Marcus loaded boxes of donated glucometers into a van. He waved, sweating through his t-shirt, and I waved back. No speeches. Just work, done under the sun where nobody can pretend it didn't happen. A week later, on a bright Saturday, Nia and I hit the thrift and brunch circuit. Yard sales with vinyl leaning against milk crates, a sidewalk griddle popping with shrimp and grits. As we carried iced coffees back to the car, someone called my name. I turned and found Tiana near the curb, sunglasses on, mouth tight. "Zuri," she said, voice flatter than the pavement. "I heard about your promotion. Congrats." "Thank you," I said. The day was too pretty for old arguments, she shifted. "I shouldn't have spoken to you the way I did, back then." "Noted," I said. The apology was small but real, like finding $1 in last year's coat. She glanced at the sky. "I'm figuring my life out." "Me too," I said, and meant it, then wished her well, and kept walking. Naya slid me a look. I grinned. Growth sighting, daylight verified. Work steadied into a rhythm that let me live like a person, not a plug for every leak. I built orientation playbooks managers actually used. I launched a microgrant for staff covering short-term elder care costs, ride shares to appointments, medication gaps, blood pressure cuffs that don't lie after the first month. At the end of July, our hospital did a courtyard ceremony. Potted ferns, trifold display boards, a podium set at the only angle that escaped direct glare. They handed me a frame certificate for building belonging, which sounded corny until I thought about sleeping beside a washing machine just to keep a roof steady. I wasn't building belonging from scratch. I was fixing the blueprint. Afterward, Mom and Marcus met me on the sidewalk out front. Traffic groaned by, patient and rude the way city traffic always is. Mom held out a clear folder with copies of her new life. Budget, prescription plan, assistance approvals, and a list titled People I Call Before a Crisis. Marcus was number 1. Patrice was number 2. I was number 4. "I put you where it's fair," Mom said, smiling crooked. "Close enough to know, far enough to breathe." I laughed. That's exactly right. We celebrated at a food truck rally in the park, eating jerk chicken in the shade while a local band tried to make the breeze dance. Mom told a vendor she'd already hit 2 miles that morning. Marcus rolled his eyes like a proud coach. I watched them, not as their savior or their scapegoat, just their family, on a day that didn't cost me myself. When August softened a little, I moved the last of my hand-me-down furniture out and bought a dining table I actually liked. Oval, sturdy, sun-bleached wood that made my apartment feel like a promise fulfilled. Naya came over with a cheap vase and a loud laugh. We ate lunch on my balcony, salmon salad and watermelon wedges, bare feet up, the city bright and ordinary, and mine. Before she left, Naya pointed at the HR binder peeking from my tote. You still carrying everyone's air? Just enough to keep the room breathable, I said. I finally learned. Oxygen mask first was never selfish, it was survival. She raised her can of sparkling water like a toast. To daylight decisions. Daylight decisions, I echoed, and clinked the can with my glass, already knowing part 5 was coming. Not a grand finale. Just the clean continuation of a life that no longer apologized for being centered on the person living it. By September, Atlanta's heat learned its manners. Mornings came with a softer edge, like the city had set a cool cloth on its own forehead. On a Saturday, the community college held its leadership certificate ceremony on the quad, folding chairs lined up across the grass, a portable speaker doing its best with names and applause. Caps and gowns weren't required, but folks dressed like victory anyway. Sundresses, crisp shirts, sneakers that could handle emotion. Nia sat behind me, fanning lazily with the program. Marcus waved from the end of the row, off work early, a smudge of engine grease still on his wrist. Mom came with Patrice, both wearing church hats like they brought their own shade. Everything was outdoors, on purpose. We were done with rooms that made the air feel borrowed. When they called my name, Zuri Harris, I walked up, shook hands and took the paper that said I'd finished what I started. The sun caught the edge of the certificate and made it flare. I didn't cry. I didn't need to. The day did it for me. The cheer from Nia, the whoop from Marcus, the way Mom clapped too long and didn't care who noticed. We celebrated right there on the lawn, sandwiches and fruit from a cooler, water bottles sweating in a plastic tub. No toasts, just bites and grins. Mom slid next to me on the blanket, careful like approaching a shy animal. I told Miss Loretta from my building I'm at 2.5 miles now, she said, trying on a little pride. You earned it, I said. She nodded to the certificate. So did you. We didn't reach for old stories or fresh apologies. We let the present be the present. That was new for us. That felt like love that didn't send a bill. The following weeks stretched long and clean. At work, I finished the caregiver guide and rolled out a lunch and learn series under the oaks in the hospital courtyard. Sunlight dappled the handouts. People asked practical questions with the bravery that comes when problems finally have names. I added a 1-page sheet titled, What It Really Costs, a checklist for families to tally time and money before resentment does it for them. It was the resource I wished we'd had, the one that would have saved me from whispering numbers in the dark. On a bright Sunday, I met Marcus at Mom's building for a small community market they host twice a month. Collared bundles, church pound cake, a man selling gospel CDs from a folding table like it was still 2001. Marcus pushed a cart. Mom inspected greens with a seriousness that made the vendor straighten his stacks. When it came time to haul bags up the walkway, Marcus waved me off. I got it, he said. Go sit with Mom in the gazebo. So I did. We watched 2 little boys argue about whose paper airplane could fly farther. We watched a woman teach her grandson how to pick the good peaches. We watched day pass without drama. If you've never sat in easy quiet with someone you fought like hell to love better, you don't know how loud gratitude can be without saying a word. Later, as afternoon tilted toward gold, Tiana walked by with a mutual friend. She slowed, then turned. Hi, Miss Harris, she said to Mom, polite as sunshine. To me, hey Zuri. Not an apology this time, just the absence of damage. A peace treaty signed with eye contact and nothing else. She kept walking. We let her. That evening, back at my place, I set peppers and onions on a grill pan and opened the balcony door so the apartment could breathe with the city. Nia came over carrying a clamshell of brownies that should have been illegal. We ate outside at my little oval table, 2 plates, 1 joke repeated until it was funnier than the first time. When she left, I watered the fern I still refused to name and leaned on the railing. Somewhere a saxophone tried to make the twilight swing. It almost worked. Weeks slid into a new season. Mom texted photos from the senior center garden, okra tall and nosy, tomatoes climbing string like they had someplace to be. Marcus sent screenshots of auto transfers like a man who knows receipts aren't rude. They're respect. Patrice cornered me in the hospital courtyard one afternoon just to say, your mama corrected someone at Domino's who tried to start the pity party. She told them, we good. My daughter taught me how to plan. I laughed hard enough to cough. Then I sat with how much that sentence deserved a frame. I used to think justice would feel like a courtroom victory, a gavel, a speech, a standing ovation. Turns out my version arrived like this, in daylight, steady deposits, shared errands, boundaries that held, and a life that didn't shrink to fit anybody else's emergency. I wasn't the hero or the villain. I was the person who finally learned to stop paying invoices I never agreed to. On the last warm Saturday of the year, I hosted a tiny balcony lunch for the people who helped me remember my own name. Nia with her loud laugh, Marcus with his careful hands, Mom with that new softness around the truth. We ate grilled chicken, corn salad, peach tea, sweating in mason jars. Traffic murmured below us. A breeze pushed through like blessing. Mom tapped her glass with a fork. I used to think love meant never letting go, she said. Now I know it means sometimes you do, so people can stand upright. She looked at me. Thank you for not catching me so I'd finally learn to balance. The table went quiet the way it does when a sentence lands in the exact center of a moment. Then Nia grinned. Okay, who wants dessert before Zuri starts crying? Rude, I said, already laughing. After they left, I washed plates in a sink full of early evening light. I tucked leftovers into containers like saving joy for later. I stepped back onto the balcony and watched the city turn down its volume one notch at a time. This is what I know now. Daylight doesn't just reveal, it heals. Tell the truth where everyone can hear it. Make plans that don't require a martyr. Say yes to help and no to harm. And when the people you love finally learn to carry their share, forgive them for the learning curve, not the lesson. I chose myself, and nothing good fell apart. Only the things that needed to. The rest stood up straighter, faced the sun, and grew. As Maya walked away with her peace and dignity intact, one question remains. What would you have done if your own family betrayed your trust like this? Was Maya right to refuse helping them, or should she have forgiven them despite everything? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear your perspective and join the conversation. If this story kept you hooked from beginning to end, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another powerful, emotional story. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next unforgettable story.